let me know.
I'll just look at you. And keep it that way.
Where are you from?
Alright, y'all ready? Okay, so now we're going to do the female to male side of the hormone presentation. So the most common forms of, or like ways of, we couldn't find a word for this.
Administer.
Administering
It
hormones.
came to me as I was presenting.
We took like 2 hours thinking about it and we couldn't think of another word. So we put forms of hormones. Are injections, that's the most common form. Most guys do injections. It's an intramuscular injection. It's really simple. It's actually really easy, unless you have a problem with needles, obviously. But it's really easy to administer. It is what they'll do is they'll tell you can do it once every 2 weeks. But I actually recommend that you do it you do half of that dose once every week. Because what it'll do is if you do it once every 2 weeks, your levels will be like this, if you think about it. So like on day kind of 2 and 3, you'll be all the way up here at your peak. And then like at day like 10, you'll be literally like in the trenches down here. And like your emotions and stuff will go all over the place. I do know people who do it every 2 weeks and it's no problem, but I personally decided to do it once a week. You know, my levels are more like that. You know, it's more of a steady flow of my hormones. So I did that. Another one is gels, like androgel and things like that. The problem with that is, like she was saying earlier, it's very common to, if you have it on your, because I think you put it on your arm or something like that, if you get it on someone else, which can happen like very easily, that person does now have testosterone, like more testosterone in their body. So it is really easy to spread to someone else if you're in the grocery store or something like that, you know. So that's why the gel isn't really like recommended. Dosage varies by doctor, by your endocrinologist and what they recommend based on your size, your health, things like that. I started on half of the normal dose, or like the average dose for trans men. That's because of like family issues and because like I was really small, so my body kind of had more time to adjust to it, or slower, and then I got on like a normal dose after like maybe like 5 months of being on half of a dose, I believe. And the prescription process, as she said earlier, is the same. They go through the things like WPAC standards of care, and what it is you have to see. When I started, it was you have to see a gender therapist for 3 months. Depends on the person, but at least 3 months. And they have to then write your referral letter and refer you to an endocrinologist or someone to prescribe you hormones. You'll get all your levels checked and everything, all your blood work to make sure everything's good and you're healthy. And it's okay to start hormones, and then you'll start the process and everything like that. Question?
I got a comment about the gels. You don't have to put it on your arm. You can put it like underneath like your arms or like your thighs. There are guys that put it there. Like, and as long as you let it dry before, as long as you let it dry before you put your clothes on, it should be fine.
Okay, cool. See, I don't know much about the ones that aren't injections, but I've just heard it before. So you can put the gels in other places, things like that.
I had a question too, because for the M to F, the other common one was pills.
Yeah, to my knowledge, there are no pills for testosterone.
There are, but from what I've heard, they're really bad for your liver and they don't even really work.
Yeah, so it's so uncommon. It's like literally not even like
it really doesn't work for most cases.
So yeah, so to my knowledge, less forms of administration for female. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the physical changes. The most drastic one, and one of the ones that happens fairly quickly, or the first one that you'll notice a drastic change in, is your voice. As we said earlier, testosterone is irreversible and is very strong, so your voice does change very drastically. Usually within, like I say, a timeline within like the first like 1 to 3 months, you'll see like the first like major depth, I guess, of your voice happening. Most guys will develop facial hair over time. It's different for everyone. Time is different for everyone. You also have to remember that like a lot of cis guys don't develop a beard. They might not ever, and a lot of cis guys don't even develop a full beard until like in their 30s, if they even get one at all. But that just depends on your genes and sometimes your ethnic and racial background, things like that as well. But yeah, facial hair depends on the person. But usually, I say timeline for that is usually like around, average is somewhere around like 9 months to like a year and a half even. And I'll talk about something later like post-op wise that affects that. But it happens really late for some guys. My facial hair didn't come until like a year ago. your menstrual cycle will stop. That's another one that varies by person. I've heard people who they started testosterone, you know, like on like the average dose, they started and it pretty much stops, like literally then. That's not like super common, but it usually does stop within the first month. I started on half a dose, and I think that mine didn't stop until like 5 or 6 months on testosterone. It was awful, but it's different for everyone. Usually it happens within the first 1 to 3 months that it decreases or stops. The masculinization process will increase. You'll become, I don't know if I have it, yeah, you'll become, you know, kind of, you'll grow a little bit, not in height and things like that, but you're gonna appear more masculine. Your facial structure is kind of gonna change a little bit. I don't really know how to explain that, but it definitely happens. Like you have a less feminine appearance. Your facial structure and everything like that is more masculinized. Your whole body is more masculinized. You'll have some like weight and muscle gain. Your weight, your like fat will redistribute. So, for example, like, you know, you have more of that. What do you say? Like, for women, you say more like a curvy.
Hourglass.
Or what do you say? Like hourglass. You're like, if you're more of an hourglass shape, or you know, like more hips, like more fat in your hip region. I had that a lot. It'll redistribute. So you will like, it's kind of slim in that area, if that makes any sense. Like, for example, I wore like a 34 pretty much, almost in dress pants essentially, and then like I literally dropped so drastically like in that area that I wear at 28 now. So like it really does redistribute. Your fat redistributes, and then you'll have an easier time putting on muscle and things like that, and gaining weight, getting bigger. Like I said, your body will grow. You're not gonna like grow in height or anything like that, but your shoulders will definitely broaden, things like that. Your stature kind of gets bigger, gets wider, and just larger all around. And your appetite will increase. It's different for everyone. Timeline is different for everyone. That also I feel like depends, you know, post-op, things like that, but it will increase pretty drastically immediately, and then over time I feel like it increases like gradually even more, and then it just gets like, it just stays. I'm hungry all the freaking time, especially on Tuesdays because it's shot day. So okay, so next. Okay, so again with the sexual changes, if anybody's uncomfortable, so you will have changes in your anatomy. As far as female to male goes, you'll have changes in your anatomy area as far as your breast tissue will turn into like fat. So if you're binding, things like that, something I always tell guys is like, if you're binding, it'll be easier to bind, it'll be less uncomfortable, and it will bind more, if that makes any sense. Because it does turn into fat. So fat is much easier, much more, like, the word that I'm looking for.
Liable.
Yeah, like things like that, like than breast tissue. And your anatomy will, I'm not super comfortable talking about this stuff, so sorry. But you essentially, if you're like talking about like female anatomy, you will grow like a penis essentially. What it is your like clit will grow slightly. Depends. There are also things that you can do to increase this, but we're not going to go into that. But it will naturally with testosterone. And your comfort level is going to change if you're more comfortable with your body. Just as she was saying earlier, sex has a lot to do with your comfortability and how you are feeling with yourself and things like that. So, as you become more confident in yourself, your sex drive will increase, and as you are more comfortable with yourself, obviously it will increase as well. But it definitely increases with testosterone. I realize now I skipped that, but yeah, it definitely increases. All right, the emotional changes. I personally mellowed out. A lot of people will tell you that they go through kind of a stage where they're like angry, or where they are more, I think I put it, kind of like irritable. I would say maybe I went through like a slight irritability stage for a little while, but I think in most cases, in my case, I feel like I was like really uncomfortable myself and I was kind of anxious, and then when I started hormones, I just kind of like, it was easier for me if I was in an argument with someone or something to kind of like cool down, like listen to like why they were upset and kind of just like chill, not like yell back at them or us both be going at each other. I could just kind of calm down, like listen to what, you know, they're saying, and I could be like, okay, this is what, you know, I could be calm about it. When before, I definitely felt like I would just like go at it with someone, you know. So I personally think that I mellowed out. People will disagree, and everyone's different. I jokingly put up there, boys don't cry. It's just a joke. But what I am gonna say is it does change your emotions and your ability to express your emotions. I personally cannot cry if I try to. Like, it takes something like really major in my life to get me to cry, and even then, like sometimes I feel like I want to cry, but I can't. And something that we talked about in my support group a lot, or we kind of joked about, was sometimes we felt like we were just so like, I don't know, we had so much stuff bottled up that we just wish we could just cry because we just wanted to like let it all out. But it's hard. It's a lot harder to express that emotion once you've been on testosterone and things like that, because it really does change how you express your emotion and things like that. Like I said, I think you go through like a short stage of irritability. I think when your body's adjusting to your hormones, adjusting in your body, then obviously you're gonna kind of go up and down a little bit. You might be a little more irritable, or a little bit more moody at first. But it's definitely a good thing, and once you're past that, it really helps, and I think that it changes you with confidence and things like that. So your confidence definitely increases, definitely happier, just like she said earlier. And I find that testosterone gives you more energy. It might not be like a actual thing that it does, but with having the right hormones in your body and being happier and things like that, I feel like you have more energy. I definitely feel like I'm more energetic or animated on Tuesdays and Wednesdays than I am on Sunday, Monday. That's when I take my shot on Tuesdays. So I definitely think it gives you more energy, and then when I'm lower on my hormone, I'm kind of more tired, I guess, feeling. So yeah, more energy. Okay, so post-op changes, as we discussed earlier, are much more, your hormones, the changes you'll see on hormones are much more drastic after you've had like top surgery, things like that. So for guys who have top surgery, a big source of estrogen is in your chest. So once you've removed that source of estrogen, your body doesn't have, the testosterone doesn't have to fight as hard against the estrogen to do its work. So as I noted earlier, after I had surgery was when I started getting facial hair. And pretty much body hair all over. I wasn't like super hairy before, but major changes like that and bigger changes in my voice came after I had surgery. So I had been on hormones for about 8 months when I had surgery, and then after that I started developing facial hair. My voice even deepened, like probably the most drastic that it did then, and I became hairier and even bigger size-wise, and I had an easier time gaining weight and muscle and things like that. But that stuff wasn't major until after I started testosterone. After I had surgery. One, because I hadn't been on it for super long. I hadn't really hit that year mark yet, and it usually takes about 2 years for your body to fully adjust and kind of really change the most with the hormones. But it all usually happens between the 1 and 2 year mark. So I hadn't really gotten very far yet, and then I removed that source of estrogen that it had to fight against. So that was when when you'll find most of the changes. So I said those. Can you go back with me? I said all that. And then, I said all that. Never mind. All right, so I put some kind of funny Mythbusters up here. I get these a lot, and these were like some things I had like with my family and kind of ridiculous stuff like after I came out. I actually put them in my book. And they're just kind of funny things that I get that people think are like happen with hormones or with starting testosterone, or that testosterone does to you, and it doesn't. But people think that it makes you fat. It doesn't. Eating wrong and not being healthy and other health factors make you fat, obviously. But like I said earlier, your fat redistributes. So people think that fat redistribution means that you get fat, or you gain fat. you will gain weight, but you won't necessarily get fat. Your fat will redistribute, and you will have an easier time gaining weight. But it doesn't just like make you fat. It doesn't. Hormones don't just make you gain weight. And there's in the trans man community, there's a running joke that testosterone makes you gay. I think I was heard that before. I have a philosophy on this, and I think that what it is that a lot of trans men kind of feel like they have to over masculinize before they are comfortable with themselves, and so they just date women, or they say that they're straight because they kind of over masculinize, and then once they become comfortable with themselves, whenever that is, and it might be after they start hormones because that's the most common thing, then they kind of figure out their true sexuality and things like that, and then they come out as gay. So the way I see it is, I don't really think that, I mean, it's different for everyone, but I think that you have an easier time kind of figuring out your sexuality and things like that after you are comfortable with your gender identity and comfortable in your body. So I think that's why people think that testosterone turns you gay, but it's not that testosterone turns you gay. Just that some people don't come out until after they start testosterone. So it's a running joke, but it's just a joke. Anger, people think that testosterone makes you angry. Testosterone does not start bar fights, alcohol does. So testosterone does not make you angry. You might be more irritable, or more, you're gonna just react to things differently, and you're definitely gonna express your emotions differently. So instead of crying, you might, react with anger or with, some other, but it's not just gonna make you angry. You're not gonna turn into an angry person, the Hulk, and start all the fights in the bars just because you're taking testosterone. That's not a thing. And personality changes. It doesn't change who you are, but your personality is gonna adjust as you become comfortable and confident with yourself, and comfortable in your body. So you might see personality changes, but the person is not changing. Just because someone starts hormones doesn't mean that who they are as a person is changing. We say that all the time, but some people still don't understand. So personality. I was gonna show, that's it, right? I was gonna show a video, if I can figure out how this is set up.
You want to
We
ask
quit.
questions first? Or do
You wanna watch this and answer it, and then ask a question?
Oh,
What do you think? I think probably watch this. So I have to see if the music's set up. Hold on. It's not. Does anybody know how to work this thing?